Should you rent out your home? Mo Hashim here with Flat Fee Landlord Houston. We manage single-family homes, townhomes for landlords and real estate investors in the Houston area. And if you are watching this and you're considering possibly renting out the home you lived in because you need to move, or maybe you just purchased an investment property and you don't want to flip it right away, you want to rent it out, you're asking the question, should I rent it out? I'm going to go over the benefits of renting out your property, and from there you can kind of figure out whether it is a good idea to rent out your property, or whatever other options you may have, go that route. So should you rent out your home? Here's some things to consider when you're going to be renting out your home. All right, number one, why do you want to rent out your home? Ask yourself that. Do you really want to hold on to this piece of property, this piece of real estate, over time? Because real estate, for the most part, is a long-term process, okay? People tend to choose to rent out their real estate because they want to hold on to it long-term. It's not like stocks or any other more liquid types of investments where you can buy it one day, hold it, and literally 2 seconds later sell it. That's not really how real estate works. I mean, I guess you could do it, but it's not going to make a whole lot of financial sense for the most part unless you get lucky. So if you're going to rent out your home, you're probably going to hold on to it for a little while. Okay, so when you do rent it out, depending on the type of way you're going to rent it, whether it's going to be more like a vacation rental, an Airbnb style rental, VRBO style rental, or a minimum of a 1-year lease, more of a long-term rental, you got to factor those things in when you think about how you want to exit, whatever your exit strategy is from this piece of real estate. Okay, what I really want you to do is get yourself out of me being a homeowner and renting out this property, and I really want you to get into more of the mindset of a business owner, because that's really what you are when you have real estate. You have a product, which is going to be your home, and you're going to be providing it to customers, potential tenants, and that's the service that you offer. That's the product and the service that you offer. Your home for a fee or a cost, which is going to be in a form of rent that the tenant's going to pay. So as a business owner, you kind of want to also consider your exit strategy. How long do you want to do this for? What do you really want to get out of this new business venture that you've embarked on, of renting out your property? So you gotta create some goals, create a strategy, and execute on those. Okay, so things you want to consider when you're renting out your home: length of lease, type of renter. So is it going to be short-term, long-term? Is it going to be a vacation renter, a corporate renter, a typical long-term lease, a 1 year plus? Those are the types of things I'm talking about when I'm talking about length and type of renter. Another thing you want to consider is the cash flow that you're currently getting on the property. All right. If you're not familiar with what cash flow is we're going to take the total amount of rent you're going to get. You're going to subtract any expenses that you have throughout the lease term, and you have to include every expense. So, the cost for advertising your property for rent, any cost for paying commissions, management fees. You're going to factor in the cost of repairs, make-readies on your home, anything that is involved with renting out and holding that property. That's an expense. So you're going to take the total rent, subtract all of your expenses, and then on top of that, if you have any debt on the property in a form of a mortgage or any type of other debt servicing that you have on that piece of property that you have to pay the bank or a lender for, you subtract that payment away, and whatever is left, hopefully a positive number. If it is a positive number, then that's a positive cash flow property, and that's ideally what you're looking for as a real estate investor. If you take all the expenses and the debt servicing away from the total rent that you're getting, and you have a negative number, then that's a negative cash flow property. And depending on why it's negative, that may not be the best investment for you. Okay, so you want to create a target cash flow for your rental property. Okay, now obviously the higher the cash flow, the better, but that may not be 100% up to you as a landlord. Okay, so you can't set the rent at some astronomical price if nobody's going to rent it. So you have to be really you got to be realistic when it comes to setting your rental price. It has to be set at market value of what you really think it's going to rent for. Because another thing you want to consider, we didn't really go over this when we were talking about expenses, but another expense, not in form of, hey, let me write a check or whip out my credit card for, is going to be vacancy, lost rent, okay, opportunity cost. These are factors that you're not directly paying for, but anytime you're not receiving income is also a opportunity cost that you have to factor in. So vacancy is something you want to consider. And if you are above market rents in terms of what you're asking for your property, then that's another factor or another expense you need to factor in there. So ideally what you want to do is you want to get the top market value rented out in the lowest amount of time. So you're not leaving money on the table in terms of what you're asking for in rent, but you're also not leaving it on the market for a long time, not collecting rent. So once you've established that rent value that you want to get, subtract all your expenses, subtract your debt servicing, whatever that number is, you have to figure out, what's it worth to me? Is it worth $100 a month cash flow for me to have this property, or do I want more? Every person's going to be different in terms of what they want and what is an acceptable cash flow. You got to realize what your time is worth and what your money is worth. And if it comes out to meeting that number, then yes, it's probably a good idea to rent out your property. However, if you're realistic with your rents, you're realistic with your expenses, you're realistic with your debt service, and you've done everything you can to maximize all three of those facets, and you still come up with a number that falls short with what you consider worth it, then it may not be a best investment or best option for you to rent out that property. You may want to look into either continuing living in that property or selling it. So those are some things that you really need to consider, really the biggest things you need to consider when it comes to whether or not you should rent out your property. If you have questions in terms of what kind of expenses you should expect, or what is a reasonable debt servicing, feel free to reach out to any one of our offices. You can also go to our website at houstonpropertymanager.com.